amid fears that Ukraine would be unable to defend itself after the United States paused intelligence sharing. Russia launched further aerial assaults overnight. 4 people were killed in a missile strike on this hotel in Kryvyi Rih in central Ukraine. President Zelenskyy said British humanitarian volunteers survived the attack in his home city. He was invited to an emergency European Union summit in Brussels today.
From the very beginning of the war and what's been during all this period and last week, you stay with us, and of course from all the Ukrainians, from all our nations, big appreciation. We are very thankful that we are not alone, and these are not just words, we feel it.
European leaders are being asked to agree a plan to increase their military spending as they prepare for a new era without the American protection that's been in place for decades.
Europe faces a clear and present danger, and therefore Europe has to be able to protect itself, to defend itself, as we have to put Ukraine in a position to protect itself and to push for a lasting and just peace.
But Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron's plan to deploy peacekeeping troops to Ukraine to defend any deal met an angry response from Moscow today.
We
will categorically not observe this kind of action. This will mean, I want to say again, not a supposedly hybrid, but a direct, official, undisguised involvement of NATO countries in the war against the Russian Federation. This cannot be allowed.
Meanwhile, in London, Ukraine's ambassador to the UK delivered a blistering response to recent events.
We see that it's not just the axis of EU and Russia trying to revise the world order, but the US is finally destroying this order.
The UK's Defence Secretary John Healey arrived in Washington last night ahead of a meeting with his American opposite number later. Britain again faces the difficult task of trying to repair alliances across the Atlantic. Tom Sheldrick, ITV News.
In the last half an hour, the UK government has announced it has signed a deal with an Anglo-American defence company to provide Ukraine's armed forces with more advanced attack drones to tackle Russian aggression in the Black Sea. Our political reporter Jasmine Cameron-Chaleshi is with the Prime Minister, who's on a visit to Merseyside. Jasmine, you've been speaking to Sir Keir Starmer today. What's he had to say about Ukraine?
That's right. As you say, I've been in the northwest today where the PM's been visiting defence workers. He's been talking up the sector. All of this comes as the UK signed this deal with an Anglo-American security firm with the aim of providing Ukraine with more advanced weaponry. And of course comes as the Defence Secretary will be meeting with his US counterpart. Now, all of this comes as the UK is ramping up those diplomatic efforts behind the scenes to try to rebuild that relationship between President Zelenskyy and President Trump following that tumultuous Oval Office meeting. Now, I asked the PM about this peace plan that he, President Macron and Ukraine are trying to piece together. I asked if he was confident that the US could get behind it and whether Russia would agree, and here's what he had to say.
And I know there's great anxiety out there at the moment. That makes the work that I'm doing all the more urgent, which is to get everybody onto the same page, to be clear that what we're trying to achieve is lasting peace, to make sure that if we do get a peace and there's a deal, that we're prepared to defend the line on the deal, defend the deal, and that means ensuring there's a security guarantee.
Now, I think his comments really reflect the tight balancing act that Number 10 is trying to navigate. On one hand, the PM wants to signal to voters at home that this increase in defence spending will boost growth, will put more money into people's pockets. He also wants to signal to an increasingly unpredictable US administration that the EU is serious about investing in its own security. Now, whether or not those messages will be heard and well received at home or by the US is the big question for Starmer's administration in the coming days.
Jasmine, thank you very much. Thank you. Let's take you back to Brussels now and get the latest from our Europe editor, James Mates.
So an emergency summit here in Brussels, and a most unusual one, largely because it is about defence, not traditionally a big area for the EU. Many countries always wanted to leave that to NATO for obvious reasons, because of the developments in the last month or so. Increasingly, European leaders are looking for European-only forums in which to talk about that. So defence spending and support for Ukraine, the two big issues to be talked about today. President Zelenskyy will be here in person. Originally, he was going to do this by a video link, but has decided it's so important it's better if he's here. Opposing him, if you can put it that way, Viktor Orban of Hungary, who really doesn't want any more support for Ukraine to be voted through at this stage. He's much more on board with President Trump's view of where policy should go. He was in Paris last night being put under some pressure by President Macron not to rock the boat today, but we won't know until later today whether that effort was successful. On defence spending, the European Commission is proposing £150 billion in new borrowing facilities for the EU. That will probably go through. It's to be specifically spent on defence and comes on the back of big increases that have been announced both in the UK and particularly in Germany, where incoming Chancellor Friedrich Merz has authorised big hundreds of billions worth of extra spending. So that will probably be approved here today. But the big issue really that everyone will be looking at is, does the EU come out of this looking and sounding unified in the face of what's coming across the Atlantic from Washington, or is there evidence of the sort of splits that have weakened the European response up till now?